Welcome back, viewers and listeners. I'm joined on set this morning by our dear friend, Miss Juanita Headley, attorney at law, a little lady with a big message, because every time you come on Tobago Channel 5, we're talking human trafficking.
That's right.
And of course, it's a topic that has become very dear to you. And you travel the world.
Yes.
You get all the time on every station you can to talk about the dangers of human trafficking. So I'm going to give you a little opportunity to introduce yourself for our new viewers.
Sure. My name is Juanita Headley. I'm a New York attorney, and I have an NGO called Changing Cases. This NGO is based on helping to empower individuals around the world to educate them on the scourges of exploitation, and then beyond that, helping individuals in impoverished communities. I've just come back from the Philippines, India, Singapore, England, and the US. So a lot of traveling. But yeah, it's a great opportunity to be here and to be able to inform people on the latest updates on what I've heard recently and what I've experienced and been exposed to.
Ms. Headley, usually when we think human trafficking, we think of some people being stuffed in a container, sent abroad, and exploited in that kind of way. But there is another type of human trafficking, so where someone can be exploiting you right in your neighborhood, right in your home. So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
This is specifically known as grooming. So grooming is when a person will, for example, provide you finances, do your hair, nails, makeup, take you shopping. They'll build a relationship with you, one based on trust. And I know of a young girl right here in Tobago who actually has been groomed by an older guy, not trafficked, but she entered into a sexual relationship with him. And as a result of that relationship, she became incredibly vulnerable and suicidal, to be honest with you, because of what she experienced. The sad thing about it is that a number of girls enter into these relationships with a guy, usually, and then there's a point when he says, have sex with my friends, and then it goes on from there. And then in South America, we have men who get married to a woman for the purpose of pimping her out. So her husband is indeed her pimp, which she doesn't realize, of course.
All right. Well, you talk about grooming. Online, people are seduced or are lured into the trap. In some cases, people are offered a better life, in some cases, to varying parts of the world. Half of the times, it's a hoax. How do you caution young ladies? Well, I guess this is an opportunity we can speak on the broad topic, because that's one of the major way of recruiting and, of course, having people become slaves, sex slaves in some cases. How do you guard against or young people or young ladies, or young men, in some cases for their body parts or their so on. But let's deal with that whole question of what should people look out for when messages are sent on their phones and so on.
It's very broad, and there's individuals who will send inappropriate photographs. They will friend request you. We have people who go out of their way to simply go online to find a girl, and they will build a relationship often over months and months. So I know of a young girl who was groomed for up to a year. The relationship became sexual, but it started with pornographic photographs. And I know of a gentleman, I don't know if I can call him that, who has been incarcerated in the United Kingdom for creating hurt core, where he would get girls to produce pornographic imagery, and then he would sell this imagery on. So that was more pornography, but also trafficking, but online cyber sex, we would call that. Yeah.
But so there are people from different parts of the country here. Presently, they would say to you, I got here based on, my intention or the intent was for me to become a domestic worker.
Yes.
And they are lured in, their passport are seized, and all their travel documents, in some cases, legitimately travel to the country, and their passports are seized and all of that, and they now become domestic worker eventually, as you said, sex workers and so on. What protection, or how can these perpetrators, should we say, these criminals be caught, or is there a plan by, I don't know if there's an organization called Trafficking, I don't know what, but and you can speak to what you represent. Is this individually that you're doing this? Tell us where and how can people get help in the event that they are screaming out for help?
In the United States, there is the National Trafficking Hotline number, and there's also the Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And these numbers, which you can find online, including Polaris Project, are great resources for getting information, for reporting if you see something. because at the end of the day, it does happen. And in other countries, particularly third world, we don't know where to go or where to reach out to. But having those resources is, of course, great and helpful, because it means that if we see something, we're able to report it, and then the authorities get involved. The challenge we have in Trinidad is a lot of people believe that the police are corrupt, and so they don't know who to trust. But right here, we do have the counter-trafficking unit, and Alana Wheeler spearheads this organization, and she's doing phenomenal work. And I trust her, but of course we know outside of the counter-trafficking unit, who exactly do we reach out to, and where can we get the help and be safeguarded? Because there are occasions when a child or a woman or a boy is rescued, and then they're rescued and brought into further exploitation by the authorities.
Okay, let's bring it home. We just talked about the anti-trafficking unit here. Do you think when you enter Trinidad and Tobago, do you feel safe? Do you feel any sort of security? The sense of security if something does happen, as you just said, people are afraid of, people think police officers are corrupt.
Yes.
That's just the opinion of some people.
Sure.
But do you feel a sense of security here?
I would say in Trinidad, I feel a sense of security. I'd say that coming into the airport, that it feels like a safe haven. But coming into the Tobago airport, I don't feel that way, and I feel very vulnerable. So when I landed a few days ago, I was outside of the carriage area where you collect your baggages, and the staff there I found incredibly disrespectful, and they didn't want to sort of understand my situation, meaning that I'm here alone, it's late at night. I don't want to be just hanging out on the street, and they didn't seem to want to offer any assistance whatsoever. And I don't want to be one of those people who says, do you know who I am? Because, you know, in the eyes of the world, I'm just a regular person. But for those who traffic and exploit in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm trying to destroy their industry. And they're not going to like this. So I feel pretty vulnerable when I'm in Tobago, because there is no safe place for me to wait when I land and arrive and the person who's collecting me isn't there. But then at the same time, my friends tell me that I shouldn't leave the house, I shouldn't go out by myself. So because of the nature of the work that I do, unless I'm chaperoned, I'm housebound. And I don't like that. I've been all around the world. I've traveled to 27 countries, and I've traveled a lot alone. And I've never been in a country where I cannot leave my house.
Okay, let me get to that. I want you to, this is serious. Now, you're saying that you are here in Tobago. You didn't feel safe at the airport.
No.
Why didn't you feel safe? Let's get that specifically.
I didn't feel safe because, number one, I'm alone. Number two, I don't know anybody there. I feel vulnerable because I stand out. I've met people who know who I am. They're like, oh, I've heard you on the radio, or I've seen you on TV or in the newspaper. And I've spoken in so many schools, churches, community centers that my voice, my name, my mission is known. And I know it's known because I meet people who say, you were at my son's school, you were at my daughter's church. And so the more I'm known, the more the traffickers will become aware of who I am. And I talk about child abuse and incest. So there are some family members who will not be too happy because I'm shaking up the hornet's nest.
All right, so weren't you supposed to be picked up by somebody? What was the arrangement to have you transported from the airport to your hotel?
I was waiting for a friend to collect me, and the friend was running late. So I was calling various people, and I waited for an hour inside, and I had on a Jesus t-shirt because I'm a born-again Christian, and one of the taxi drivers made a comment that I found inappropriate. He said, she's wearing a Jesus t-shirt, but she's really insecure. It's not insecurity, it's wisdom, because things do happen regardless of where you are, regardless of your gender. We are vulnerable when we're in a new land and we don't know the people, especially a place like Tobago that is very small, and so small, I've probably met a trafficker. As ridiculous as it sounds, the fact that these girls are going missing, I have probably come into contact with a trafficker.
Okay, let's talk about the safety element in public places, similar to the airport and others. So just like any other traveler whose travel arrangements may have gone awry, you are saying you do not think the airport offers enough safety options for users.
I feel the Tobago airport does not. In Trinidad, it's completely different. It's a lot more organized, and I understand that people are coming in internationally, but I feel it's so different from the Tobago one, which is so small. And then even when you're getting a taxi, you just have people who are standing outside. And of course, you don't know who is legitimate, who is not. A person can create a fake identification. So it's not as simple as, oh, people have ID. People falsify documents all the time.
Okay, let's get to the industry industry in Tobago. What are your observations as it relates specifically to Tobago and the trafficking industry?
In Tobago, it feels like nobody seems to believe it's happening here. I feel there's a great naivety. Everybody I meet says Tobago is safe. And of course it's safe. But if I myself was a trafficker or pimp, I would come here because I know that people are not expecting me to, and their guard is let down. And I know of 2 instances of girls, a young girl and a woman, who did go missing within the last 10 years, never to be seen again, no body. So where are these individuals, and why isn't anyone talking about it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell me about, you not only deal with the issue of missing girls, but you also deal with the issue of exploited girls here in Tobago. What are your observations in that arena?
I'm not hearing anything, I'm not seeing anything, and I talk to people, and no one seems to believe it's happening, and no one seems to be able to provide information. So when I talk to individuals, they say, well, that's in Trinidad. So right now, it seems as though nothing is going on here, and I find that hard to believe. In my opinion, when you have men and women and you have sex, you will have sex trafficking. It's Tobago. People here are not celibate. People are having sex. I mean, look at Carnival.
No.
So let's be real. I believe that there is exploitation happening here because all it simply is taking advantage of another individual for your own pleasures or for profit. That's all it really is.
All right, but I want to just connect the link with the anti-trafficking unit in the police service here, and your organization is what again?
Changing cases.
Changing cases. So, and what is the link with the international community as to bring these perpetrators to justice? How does it work from your organization to the anti-trafficking unit of the police service in Trinidad?
My organization, it's very much sort of me, myself, and I just have a passion to see the eradication of human trafficking. So I'm a free ranger. I'm kind of a missionary, attorney missionary, and I just go around the world educating people. The counter-trafficking unit, they're more hands-on, so they're local. They have the power to make a difference. I'm a New York attorney, but I don't have any rights in a country like Trinidad because the laws are different. So for me, my desire is to educate people, to safeguard and to protect individuals so that they do not get exploited, and then to bring the issue of sexual abuse to the forefront, because once we talk about it and deal with it, then we can protect those children from becoming victims of trafficking in the future.
All right, there's a difference between sexual abuse in the home, there's incest, there's rape and unsolved.
That's right.
And then there is human trafficking, moving people for financial earnings or financial gain.
Yes.
Now, I want to separate the two just briefly so that we not clutter the two and mix them up.
Sure.
Now, so you're an advocate for or women who are young people, boys as well,
yes,
who are being abused. That's one.
That's right.
And then the human traffic element.
Correct.
So I'm dealing specifically with human trafficking. If someone can identify someone they know was taken, yeah, to go back to the movie.
Yes.
Taken, how do you fit in? What do you, as an attorney, what assistance can you bring to that individual, given that you are alone in this struggle, in this fight to bring justice, should we say, to victims of human trafficking?
For me, it's just having the right connection. So I know people in the police force. I know individuals who do counseling, social work, the counter-trafficking unit. It's really just being the middleman. So if I have information, which I do receive, not on trafficking, then I'm able to forward it on to the right person. Because a lot of the girls here, maybe not trafficked currently, but going through a situation that is not appropriate or safe, they don't know who to talk to. So I am the middleman. I get the information and I fill it on. And you're right that sexual abuse is separate from trafficking, but they're interlinked, which is why I discuss the two of them whenever I present. And often trafficking doesn't involve movement. I know of individuals trafficked from their neighbor's home, trafficked by their parents, so the incest becomes trafficking.
Miss Headley, for our new viewers, tell us again why you decided to get into this type of work.
I believe it's probably as a result of what I went through as a child. So that was sexual abuse from 4 to 10. I was a victim, I'm now a survivor, and due to the grace of God, I did not end up being trafficked or end up becoming promiscuous or prostituted, but I understand that could have been a reality if my situation was different. So I spent a lot of time in the red light district with people who I could have been, and I really have a heart for such individuals, and that's why I bring this message, because I want to safeguard people. And even though I'm blessed to have an amazing life, there's a lot of things I wish could have been different if I'd got the help and assistance when I was a young abused child.
4 to 10.
That's
Who was
correct.
your abuser?
My mother's first husband, who's now deceased, was sexual abuse, attempted rape for 6 years of my life. My family didn't know, and when they found out, it was too late, and nothing was done. The police didn't prosecute, insufficient evidence, and I'm still trying to deal with the side effects and the repercussions of nothing being done and not getting the help as a child.
Where did this take place?
In my mother's home during my sleep time.
Which country?
In London, England, where I was born.
Okay.
So that's why I have sleep issues, because my sleep was disturbed for 6 years of my life.
And these are the things that can happen if we leave things undone when children are left in the care of maybe.
Unfortunately, usually when a person is abused or trafficked, it's somebody that they know, whether it's a family member, neighbor, the guy on the bus, the person who works at the shop. It's usually somebody you know. It is not usually a stranger. It's a lot higher percentage that it's somebody close to home because your guard is down. And a lot of times it's the father, stepfather, grandfather who is the perpetrator of abuse and exploitation and trafficking, including mothers. Mothers also traffic their children, not just in Asia, in first world countries too.
Okay. Tell us, you just have a minute, if you have to give a message.
Yes.
To our young girls, to our parents, to anyone. This is the opportunity.
First of all, I just want to say that it's important that we have conversations about sex. That's crucial. Don't feel uncomfortable about talking about such things. And then another important point, can you keep a secret? Whenever someone says that to you, you've got to say yes, because they're trying to tell you something. And I just want to make a quick plug and give my website, changingcases.org, my Facebook, Changing Cases. And then finally, I just really need to thank Ulrich Bain for everything he's done for me. He's been a tremendous help. Seema Bannon also, whilst I was in the Philippines, they both supported me. So I really have to thank them more than anybody on this earth for all that they have done for me, and also the opportunity to be here and to share this message, which is important. And lastly, again, if somebody says, can you keep a secret? You need to say yes so they can tell you the secret and so you can inform the authorities. That's really, really important.
Thank you so much for being with us, Ms.
So
Headley.
welcome.
And I know we've been busy and life happens, but we do have to do this more often and find a way to get the message out in a better, wider way.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Viewers and listeners, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by some more interesting guests. So stay tuned.
And welcome back, viewers, to the Weekend Digest, where your Saturdays will never be the same. And we just saw some statistics on human trafficking, and on set we have with us U.S. Attorney at Law Juanita Headley. Now, we just came out of an interview with Dawn Wheeler where we were speaking about the anti-terrorism bill, and now we're jumping into human trafficking. And so we want to welcome you on set.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. We'd like to speak on human trafficking, and can you just define for our viewers what human trafficking is?
I use a layman's term when I define human trafficking with individuals outside of the courtroom, outside of an office building with people like myself.
And we appreciate that.
Which is best, I believe. The legal definition is recruitment, enticement, but what does that mean to the layman?
Right.
My definition is that human trafficking is merely the exploitation of an individual. So I believe it takes place all around the world, no matter where you are, it just comes in different forms. And so in my opinion, when you have men and women and sex, you have sex trafficking. In my opinion, when you have sick people who need a transplant, who need blood transfusion, you will have organ trafficking. And in my opinion, when you have restaurants, establishments, businesses, you have labor trafficking, because it's really the exploitation. It doesn't require movement, and many trafficking victims, they are trafficked in their home country. So people think it's to do with illegal immigration. That is just a dent. There is a lot of individuals who are trafficked, and they're trafficked by their neighbor, by the family member, so there's no movement across borders.
What? Okay, that is boggling my mind right now, and I'd like for you to just speak to what you just said there about family members or a neighbor trafficking, or in terms of no movement. Can you speak to that, please?
In Philippines, for example, we have a lot of sex trafficking there and cyber sex. It's a very impoverished country, so we have parents who are using the internet to sexually abuse their children for the pleasures of people across the other side of the world. And then we have parents in the US, for example, who may be selling their own body. The customer notices that she has a daughter, and then that mother will start selling the daughter to these very same customers who are previously paying for her. Then we have neighbors, again in the United States, who have trafficked out the children from next door, and nobody even knew that. We've got classmates who traffic out their peers. So it's not just pimps and gangbangers and corrupt police, it's everyday people.
Wow, that is some really shocking news right there for me, especially because I have to wonder, is this even happening in Tobago?
Well, and then if I could jump in, Reese, I mean,
sure.
Juanita was here for the premiere of a movie that was aired, I want to say last year, yeah?
It was this year in Movie Town, Sold,
And Sold, the movie, when I went to see it and had the opportunity to work with her, it was as alarming for me. But going to your question about is it happening in Tobago, we had a chance to talk, and I'm not sure you knew it was me, but we had a chance to talk thereafter, and I can totally attest it is happening in Tobago. And I'll give an example. Not too long ago, an acquaintance acquired a friend, let's put it that way, and it was obvious that this friend was not a voluntary friend, let's say. And after inquiring, so where did you meet this person? That person who had this friend said, well, nah, I buy that. Yeah? Right here in Tobago, Pigeon Point.
They bought that.
They bought that for the weekend or forever or whatever.
Yes.
So even though she's talking about the right next door, and even though we're talking about, okay, my little sister is attractive, and I realize that boys like her, let me start, hooking up with the little boys. That is trafficking.
Agreed.
And I learned this from dealing with Dawn on a couple of occasions, but also on going to that film that Juanita, I don't know if you actually produced it.
No,
but sharing the
I share the film because I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about India, and I feel that using this entertainment tool, it opens people's eyes, because it's about a child being prostituted, and usually we think about prostitution as adults who choose that. And this movie, I have people crying in the audience because it's a child.
Sure. Yeah,
it's
but there were also examples in discussions where within families, and I'm sure that the average viewer could attest, fathers or uncles or some form of incestual behavior going on without consent.
Yes.
Yeah, so children being taken advantage of.
Right.
is a form of trafficking.
And that's happening here. I've heard
It is.
stories of
It
men
is.
who sell their daughter or niece to pay off debts that they owe, and that's in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
And that is trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
That is trafficking.
Well,
So, I'd just like for you, because I'm
Shocking.
really trying. Yes,
Yeah.
you had the
It's hard
opportunity
to
see
wrap
the
your
movie,
head
but
around it, yeah.
I am, now. I mean, I've heard of it happening, but it's so close to home.
Yes.
Can you define for our viewers what are some of these signs, or how can they define that this is actually happening? What are some of the things that would make a person's action be deemed as you are in fact engaging in human trafficking? Because some people may be doing it and they don't know. They think they're just trying to get rid of their debts, right?
Yes.
But then when they brought before the court of law, lo and behold, they're hearing that they're engaging in human trafficking.
well,
Like,
is there any
is there any defined?
not necessarily defined, but is there any punishment for it? Is there any for participating? If you are caught doing that, what's to prevent somebody from saying, okay, now I recognize what it means, and this penalty is so severe? Is there anything like that?
The
that people
penalties
have
are
to
not
look out
severe
for?
enough. There's not enough evidence. Even when it comes to like trafficking in the U.S. specifically, we have pimps and traffickers who will get their prostituted women to drive across state lines to intimidate and beat the prostituted individuals. So he collects the money. He has no involvement. And then when the individual is arrested and brought to court, he's waiting there to pay bail. And she refuses to speak out. Stockholm syndrome. She's in love with the trafficker pimp because he feeds me, he gives me a home.
Yes, it's a whole psychological mind job, right?
Yep.
Yes, it's very
So-
deep-rooted. You can't just leave.
Right, and I'd like for you to speak to that because I asked before, what are some of the signs or some of the things that persons can know? Okay, well, you're observing a relationship in your family and you're feeling something is off on the inside. What are some of the signs on things that you
How
can
do
see
recognize it?
that human trafficking relationship is budding or happening? How can you
I'd
help
say
us with
grooming
that?
is one of the first things.
Grooming.
Yes. So
Can you define grooming?
I usually give the definition preparation. When I talk to my audiences, they say doing your hair. That's not what grooming means in this remit. Grooming is when somebody does your hair, your nails, your makeup, buys you Jordans, takes you out for food, gives you money. And we have individuals in South America meet a woman, date her, groom her, marry her for the purpose of prostituting her. So she believes it's my husband. No, that's her pimp. And what you have to understand...
Such thin lines.
Seriously, these pimps and traffickers are often very patient. They will groom you for 6 months to a year. So you think it's your boyfriend, but he's your future pimp. So it's hard to be able to decipher until they start selling your body. How do you actually know?
That they're grooming you.
That's the point. You just think, well, he's loving and he's caring, and he doesn't have to be the older man. Women do it too. We have women who are traffickers. We have husbands and wives. I read of a case recently in the United States where we had Indian actresses. They say they're C-list actresses who were flown over to the US and they were kept in a house and they were sold out at Indian film festivals and Indian events, and they were sold for high premium prices by a husband and wife couple. These girls speak very little English, limited English, believe they're coming over for a great opportunity, and they were sold for sex for over $1,000 per person.
So we're actually seeing a shift in terms of what people traditionally know human trafficking to be.
Yes.
The whole dynamic is changing. Where you're speaking about people being groomed and it's really frightening because you have a lot of young girls and even boys who may be growing up and they need money
That's right.
for their education, they need money to survive. And then you have these predators out there, essentially, they're predators, who would use their money or their power,
That's right.
or if it is that they have a business or whatever the case may be, to rope in and reel in these vulnerable persons, buy them cars, pay for their, their
education,
food, their housing. And these persons, I imagine, because you spoke about, just being psychologically drawn and feeling you're in love. Can you speak about that whole dynamic between a human trafficker and, the victim or, Can you speak about that whole?
Depends on the trafficker, because some traffickers will groom and build a strong bond and relationship. Others may keep you in a closet without food or water for days, brutalize you, gang rape you, and turn you out into prostitution. So we have different types of traffickers. There's the one that uses the brute force, and the one that wines and dines and embraces you, and you believe he's your boyfriend, and he may have other women, but you feel you're the special one. They call it a stable.
And they tell you that. They tell you that you're. They tell all of you. They tell all the women that you're the special one.
And they don't talk to each other.
Right.
They don't talk
keep
to each
all
other.
the women separate.
Yes, and he has a stable with all these women. It's called a stable, and that's the name. And then there is the bottom B word. I don't curse. The bottom person, but he has a stable with these women.
Okay. So we have statistically information that this is happening in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
Can you share any of those? You said don't ask you statistics, but are there known cases, and has there been any intervention or arrests in those
convictions?
In those situations?
I know of a case personally. I worked with Ilana Wheeler from Counter-Trafficking Unit last year, and this was a trafficking case. It was labor trafficking, and it was men from India who were labor trafficked over here. I've heard of personal stories talking to people about possible trafficking situations. I read online about statistics with regards to countries around the world. I'm getting information all the time about what's going on, but we have to understand that statistics change. Information is not consistent. And what about those people who are kept inside, who do not leave? What about those who never disclose? How do we really know what's going on? And then here, when I go online and I research about trafficking here, I'm not getting any articles, meaning newspaper articles, concerning it happening here. I'm getting it on the Philippines, India, America, England.
So it's almost as though there is no information to gather from here.
It feels like that.
But Ms. Hadley, can you at least identify for us the fact, or is there, I should say, any partnership that you have established with a national body, whether it's a NGO, whether it's some sort of organization within the government that is actually paying attention to trafficking? Is there such a body here that you're partnering with to help us alleviate or even raise awareness about it?
Here, I specifically do not know of many organizations that are doing this. I know some that touch on the surface. Maybe they provide a shelter, they provide a home.
What
maybe
about
they
law
provide
enforcement,
assistance.
though? Is there any intervention there?
That is a good question, and I do speak to the police, and I have given presentations there and met with them, but the police I worked with were not ones that were delving into this issue specifically. So maybe I don't have the contacts or connections at this point, because I'm more of a freelance, volunteer, missionary kind of person. And for me, I'm more about relationship. I'm more about understanding this issue and educating and empowering people to safeguard and protect themselves. But when I've been online looking for organizations in Trinidad, I can't find any. If you go to the US, there are thousands, and if they're online, I know about them because I spent so much time in the US building relationship that I know all of those NGOs, maybe not personally, but I know their name and I know about them because I've done my research. But in Trinidad, on that same website, End Slavery Now, I can't find any NGOs that are fighting it right here in Trinidad.
Well, Ms. Hadley, you said that you you work with the police.
Yes, I have.
In Tobago in terms of educating them. Right? We actually had an interview with the police sometime before, and they were saying that they are focusing on moving within the communities and building a partnership with the various communities in terms of crime watch and all of that. Is it a case where that partnership can be made when they are going to these communities, that you can go with them to educate persons on that level about human trafficking and just being aware and looking out for each other within that their space about things like that can be happening. I don't know.
Yes, well, I've had the opportunity to speak at the Police Youth Club in Trinidad. I'll be speaking at the Police Youth Club on Sunday here in Tobago. And so opportunities have opened up. So I know a lot of police individuals, and even if I've not spoken at their station, they've connected me to the youth club. They've provided opportunities for me to educate the community. And when I did that in Trinidad 4 months ago, there was a young boy, and he was very, very educated on this stuff. I don't know how he was so educated, but he was 11, and I was shocked. I'm like, how does he know this? And I don't believe it's necessarily personal experience, but he was very clued up. And then recently in Trinidad, a 9-year-old was educating me. She gave me a better definition of a pimp than most adults. So I believe we can learn from children because they see things that often we do not.
Yes. Just talking about children, and can you give us a definition in terms of the difference between child abuse and trafficking?
Child sexual abuse, it's touching a child over or under their clothing, showing a child pornography, standing naked in front of a child is child sexual abuse. It's
Really?
not cultural, it's actually abuse, yes.
Wow.
Rape, which is sex, is abuse, and attempted rape, which is not sex, is also abuse. Because a lot of people don't understand what sexual abuse is, and they don't realize there is a link between sexual abuse and trafficking.
What is the
Around
link?
90% of prostituted people, around 90% of prostituted people were sexually abused as a child. Many of the women and men in the sex industry, I mean pornographic movies, where they're so-called consenting, they were often victimized or sexually abused as a child, and some of them feel it's empowerment. And then we have sexpresso cafes. There's one that's existing in Switzerland. We have women who work there who may have been victimized as a child and want to empower themselves. And so they work in a sexpresso cafe performing sex acts on men in public whilst the man is drinking his coffee. Or if
So
the
I
guy's
guess-
shy, there are 2 booths of privacy.
So I imagine that speaks to a child being conditioned
Correct.
in their formative years.
Yes.
And so that conditioning really, informs their behavior as they grow into their adult life.
That's right.
So that they kind of default into that learned behavior.
Yes.
And things that they did as a child or saw as a child, they just continue and they believe that
That's
this is the
normal.
way of life and it's normal. when in
Well,
fact-
Yes.
prostitution, for what it's worth, in Switzerland is legal. So those types of activities are not looked down or condoned.
Correct.
Because it's legal. Now, setting that framework and making something legal doesn't make it right.
Agree.
It may be someone is doing it unwillingly to someone
Yeah.
else.
In fact, I think
Yes.
it's crazy that the government would actually legalize something like that and make money off of it.
Yeah, it bothers
is
me.
what it is.
This is actually wrong. You know it's wrong, and the government is making money from
Yeah.
this, like off of people. Like,
Who are
is the
exploited.
government like a major pimp in that
It
regard?
feels like that. I believe that it's paid rape. It's not
Wow.
a job, in my opinion, because I talk to men and women in the red light district in Asia, and it's not a job. The men are usually fat, old, ugly, smelly, dirty individuals, and they brutalize, rape, kidnap, and sometimes murder these women, and it's a job. I will never say that's a job because I've met the victims who are in this industry for whatever reason, and they don't enjoy it, and they're petrified. I sit there and take photographs without faces, but I listen to the way they're treated and spoken to, and the men look at them like they're a piece of meat. That's not a job.
Ms. Headley, how did you get into this work? Because I can't imagine. For me, I can't. I'm sitting here listening to this, and I am feeling very emotional. I'm shaking right now. I can't imagine what it's like to be sitting in front of women like that, hearing their stories.
Yeah.
And you look very sane.
Thank you.
And
I think I am.
stable in your mind. And how did you? I mean, we have very little time. We have to wrap now. And
Yeah.
I know you want to share information with our viewers, definitely. Just to close off, and any words.
Sure. I was unfortunately a victim of sexual abuse from the age of 4 to 10 by my mother's first husband, who's now deceased. As a result of that abuse, it changed the course of my life. So I'm a born-again Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ, and my faith in Jesus is what drives me forward, what safeguards, protects me, and that's what kept me out of the red light district. Because if it wasn't for the grace of Jesus Christ, I could have been prostituted. So when I go to the red light, I don't sit there thinking that. I just love these people because it could have been me. It could have been you. People say that they choose that life. They don't. The life chooses them for whatever reason, whether it's destitution, poverty, or being a victim of abuse. So for 6 years, my mother's first husband tried to rape me. It's attempted rape. It was attempted. People don't understand that. Attempted rape is what it is. From the age of 4 to 10, he tried to steal my virginity. And I know victims here who were sexually abused at 1 month old. You know what I mean? And fortunately, those individuals are getting the help and getting the support. What about those that don't? So my obligation and my duty is to help to safeguard and protect those victims that are right here in your country by educating them. Because at the end of the day, if it isn't for somebody looking out for them and believing in them, their life can spiral down a path that will be destructive for themselves and for the people around them.
Well, Ms. Headley, can you just share with our viewers your website and any information that if they need to get in contact with you? Can you
Sure,
please?
absolutely.
Yeah.
My email address is juanita.headley@changingcases.com. My website is changingcases.org. That's CHANGINGCASES.org. My Facebook is Changing Cases. My other Facebook page is Attorney ATTY Juanita Headley. And then also my Twitter @Changing Cases. So please do reach out to me if you would love me to speak. I'll be in the country, Lord willing, until September 20th of this year, back next year. And of course, if you know of places I can screen the movie Sold, please reach out to me. Or if you want to share with me what you've been through, your story, I can keep a secret.
I can't. I can't keep a secret, and you know why.
Yeah.
Viewers, we're going to come back after a quick break. Thank you so much, Ms. Headley, for
So
being
welcome.
here with us. Applaud you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Appreciate you trying to push this effort throughout Trinidad and Tobago and elsewhere. Yeah. Viewers, stay right here on Tobago Channel 5. We will be back after a very short break.